Actors work their whole lives to gain success in Hollywood, but sadly for them it doesn't always last, and some celebrities ruin their careers after one single incident. I'm Mackenzie, and let's get into the top 10 actors who ruined their career in a matter of seconds part 2. And at number 10, Wesley Snipes. Wesley Snipes' career was taking off and he was known for many roles, but his career was derailed not because of his acting or even anything he did in public, but instead because he didn't pay his taxes. You'd assume that he would just pay it back and it would be no big deal, but his tax evasion was so egregious that he was actually sentenced to jail for his crimes. He was found guilty of willfully not filing taxes for 3 years and got 1 year in prison for every year he didn't pay taxes. He was also forced to pay back $17 million to the government. This was what he owed in taxes, along with fines and penalties. His time in jail put his career on hold, and when he came out, no one wanted to hire him. And at number 9, Paz de la Huerta. This actress was going to be huge. Even when she wasn't that well known, she was being covered in the press for her outrageous antics. Like one time when she allegedly went into a sauna while covered in honey. While she was filming the show Boardwalk Empire, she developed a reputation for being a party girl, and this was basically the beginning of the end. TMZ got footage of her incredibly drunk after the Golden Globes. She even slipped and fell at one point. Then she was arrested for assault after she allegedly threw a glass at someone, then punched them in the face. Things got worse when reports came out that she was horrible on set and she would show up to set erratic and unprofessional. She was fired shortly after and her career did not recover from the hit. And at number 8, CeeLo Green. CeeLo Green gained prominence in the 2010s and he was actually a pretty big name in the industry. He even got some acting gigs as a result of his music success, and he started judging on The Voice. But it seems like his big mouth ended up getting him into trouble. In October of 2012, he was accused of SA, a form of assault, and he ended up getting sentenced to probation and community service. But the real issue happened when he spoke about it on Twitter days later. He basically argued that if someone passed out and someone else tries to take advantage of them, it's not violating them because they consented. Obviously this makes no sense and is just incredibly disturbing. He said in part on Twitter, quote, "If someone is passed out, they're not even with you consciously, so with implies consent." After this, he was kicked off TV and he was even kicked from festivals that he planned to perform at. He's laid low ever since. And at number 7, Tonya Harding. Tonya Harding should be known as a figure skating legend who was the first American woman to land a triple axel in competition, but she's not. Instead, she's known as the vicious woman who harmed her competition in order to stay on top of the skating world. Her career was primed to reach new heights until someone hired a hitman to break Nancy Kerrigan's leg in hopes of giving Harding a better shot at the national championship. It didn't take long for people to suspect Tonya was behind it, and eventually word got out that her husband, Jeff Gillooly, and his friend were the masterminds behind this plan. Tonya claimed that she had no knowledge of the attack before it happened, but she did admit she learned of it after. She ended up pleading guilty as a conspirator to avoid jail time. She paid a $160,000 fine, was forced to withdraw from the 1994 World Figure Skating Championships, and was banned from figure skating for life. And at number 6, Robert Blake. Robert Blake had a career spanning decades, and he went from child stardom to respected adult actor. But everything changed in his personal and public life when his wife was killed in 2001. The details of the case were incredibly suspicious, and almost immediately Blake was a suspect. Bonnie Lee Bakley, his wife, was shot in his car, which was parked around the corner from a restaurant the couple was eating at that night. Apparently, he left his wife in the car while he went back into the restaurant to look for his quote missing gun, and when he came back, she was dead. There wasn't enough evidence to charge Blake with anything until 2 men came forward shortly after, claiming that Blake offered to pay them to kill his wife. 3 years after his arrest, Blake was acquitted, though a civil court claim later found him guilty of intentionally causing Bakley's death and ordered him to pay $30 million to her kids. But after this spectacle, his career was done. Halfway at number 5, Allan Carr. One terrible performance at the 1989 Oscars not only ruined Allan Carr's career, but also a budding actress by the name of Eileen Bowman. Producer Allan Carr was left in charge of the Oscars, and his worst mistake was opening the show with a performance from Snow White, starring Eileen Bowman, that was a complete disaster. Firstly, it made no sense, and it was very eccentric, and then Rob Lowe joined later to make the whole thing even cringier. The Hollywood Reporter called the number a nightmare, while the New York Times said it had earned a permanent place as the worst Oscar embarrassments. The worst treatment probably went to Bowman, who fled the city and went home to San Diego within hours of the performance. She wasn't able to return, and it's still dubbed as one of Allan Carr's worst decisions. And at number 4, Rebecca Gayheart. Rebecca Gayheart was best known for her roles in 90210 as well as Jawbreaker, and her career looked like it was going to continue to be great until 2009 911 when she hit and killed a who was crossing the street. It was actually her negligence that led to the death, because other cars around them had stopped for the boy before Gayheart failed to stop and hit him. She settled a wrongful death lawsuit with the boy's family, but the damage to her career was done, and nobody wants to work with someone who was convicted of such a terrible crime. Since then, she's been demoted to small guest starring roles. And at number 3, the Dixie Chicks. The Dixie Chicks are known as a legendary country group, and the ladies enjoyed chart-topping success while they were on top. But a wrong political move kicked the women off their pedestal. The lead singer Natalie Maines bashed President George W. Bush during a live concert in 2002. She said, quote, "Just so you know, we're on the good side with y'all. We do not want this war, this violence, and we're ashamed that the President of the United States is from Texas." But bashing the president was not as well accepted as it is now, and the women were promptly met with outrage. Country music genre completely blacklisted them, and their music was even boycotted by a number of radio stations in the aftermath. They tried to come back, but it didn't work. And at number 2, Jennifer Grey. Jennifer Grey was huge in the 80s, starring in movies like Dirty Dancing and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. She was particularly known for her unique nose that was unlike the typical noses in Hollywood and really made her stand out. But while her career was taking off, she decided to get a nose job in 1989, assuming that it would help her get more roles. But the issue with this is that when she looked like everyone else, she wasn't unique anymore, and sadly her career shrank alongside her nose. Her nose job was minor, but because her nose was so distinct before, it made her completely unrecognizable. She said about the regrettable procedure, quote, "I went into the operating room a celebrity and came out anonymous." And because nobody recognized her, she stopped landing roles and her career faded fast. And finally at number 1, Aaron Hernandez. Aaron Hernandez was primed to be a football star. He was rising up the ranks in football incredibly fast and even signed a $41 million contract with the New England Patriots. But everything in his life changed when he was accused of killing a man. He ended up being found guilty of this murder and sentenced to life in prison. While in prison, he had apparently been linked to other deaths, and it's widely believed that he's killed 4 people. But the story with Aaron got even more tragic because he took his own life while in prison in 2017. Many believe this happened because of the shame the entire debacle caused him and his family. So that's all for the list, guys. Let me know your thoughts below. But before I go, I'm gonna shout out some comments from my best friends that turned into enemies video. Fluffy Pink Chaos said, "Good thing Josh Peck dropped Drake Bell." Well, he did. Who wants to be friends with a Thank you for not saying the whole word, that's why I was able to include your comment. You know, when I made that video, I completely forgot about the, I guess, not allegations, the confirmed accusations against Drake Bell. So scary. I guess maybe Josh Peck, maybe he got an inkling of something, or clearly Josh Peck was on the right track of things and distancing himself from him. I wonder if Josh Peck knew anything beforehand. And Rocky Needs said, "I hope my comment makes in the comments shout out Orange looks good on you, babe." Thank you so much, and here you are in the comment shout out. All you need is just a good compliment. You might make it in the shout out. Then Emily QS said, "Not really shocking that Seth distanced himself from James after all that's come out about him. I bet James has had many folks around him do the same." I think so. I think many people distanced from James Franco and it wasn't a shock, but I think weirdly, maybe I'm the only one in this, I don't think anyone was like asking Seth Rogen to distance from James Franco because people knew that they were friends and collaborators from like the beginning. So I think that was just the shock that people were like, oh wow, like Seth Rogen really did the right thing, obviously in cutting cord with him, but I just don't think a lot of people expected it. I think that was really the thing. Alright guys, that's all for the video today. Thanks so much for sticking around. If you made it all the way here, if you liked the video and want to see more, make sure to like and sub to the channel below. I've been your host, Mackenzie Smith. Make sure to check us out on social media. I'll catch you all in the next one.